First of all, we started learning some things about our temperament, how we are wired at birth, not our personality, not the things in life that have come and maybe caused us to be, maybe life experiences that have caused us to develop into our deeper levels of personality. But at the core of who we are, what is our temperament? Our whole team, our whole staff's doing this. And we're learning a lot about ourselves, but about how to communicate with each other. Welcome to the Good Life Podcast, where we talk about the search for significance, the pursuit of purpose, and the challenges of our culture. I'm your host, Carl Nichols, and I'm here with Pastor Daniel Foster. And again, we are honored that you would join us today. Daniel, we've been talking a lot about relationships, specifically marriages and communication.
Yes.
And I think that's really one of the biggest challenges of our culture. And we talk about the pursuit of purpose, search for significance. Those are things that are a little more personal. Obviously, marriage is part of that conversation, having kids and leaving a legacy. But when it comes to the challenges of our culture, communication's been a big one. Marriages are being challenged in our culture. Marriage is being redefined. Unfortunately, I can't wait for a series we're getting ready to do called Fighting Words, as we talk about what is marriage and what is a male, what is a female, what is a woman. So I know as we've talked about this, you and Chris have had some fun conversations around communication. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm 44 years old now. But tell us, what has been your biggest takeaway from the Sunday series, but also from this specifically? It kind of all ties together, so let our listeners know.
Like I said a few episodes ago, communication is something we've really had to work on. And I think we'll talk about it in this podcast, but you had mentioned at the time of this recording, this most recent Sunday, you mentioned a few questions you and your wife ask each other. And so Krista just kind of took a mental note of that. And so 2 nights ago at dinner, she just kind of threw one at me. She threw one of those questions at me, and it was great. But then the question was like, what has pushed you away from me this week? And I was like, I don't know if you're ready for this.
This is great.
And I had one, and it was very small. I don't want our listeners to think that we have this huge issue. Very small thing, but I mean, it started an hour and a half conversation at the dinner table, and then she had something for me, very small. Mine was, I asked her a question. While she was answering, I picked my phone up.
Oh, my gosh.
And I didn't even think about it.
That's good, man.
And that's just me being transparent, and it's like, that was super rude. You asked me a question, I'm answering it, and you can't even give me attention. You're looking. And so it's just an awareness. I didn't, in that moment, I didn't mean anything by it, but it started a conversation. Just those few questions that you had mentioned just in passing in your message. Yeah. She took hold of that. And she's like, let's try this out. And at the end, I was like, do you want to do this again next week?
That's great. So that's the topic of our conversation today. What happens is we film these episodes, multiple episodes over the course, really almost a month at a time. And we thought we were done with a conversation on relationships, and we're going to pick up this week on a conversation on handling conflict and accusations and various things and just things that people say. But when I'm teaching on Sundays, occasionally I'll strike a nerve, and I'll tell a lot of stories about our family. And like when I talk about our family rules, that was a big one. People are like, what are your family rules? There's like 4 of them. And people start, sending us direct messages or sending us emails. Can you tell us those things? Well, this was one of those days where I was talking about building connection in marriage and talking about communication and dating and various things. And you can listen to that on myrelevant.cc or Relevant Church Online or any of the platforms that you listen to podcasts. It's called I Want a New Marriage. And so today, basically, what I want to talk about is those 7 questions that we ask each other. Julie and I, a little backstory. There's some rules we need to get to before we jump into these questions. A little backstory, and you guys jumped in and started asking questions without rules. So that was probably why you had an hour and a half conversation. So there's some guidelines, some rules that I would kind of give you in a minute. But what happened is Julie and I have been doing temperament counseling. I've always been a fan of counseling. I think couples should be in counseling. Many times individuals should be in counseling. But the reason we chose to go this direction is, first of all, we started learning some things about our temperament, how we are wired at birth, not our personality, not the things in life that have come and maybe caused us to be, maybe life experiences that have caused us to develop into our deeper levels of personality. But at the core of who we are, what is our temperament? Our whole team, our whole staff's doing this. And we're learning a lot about ourselves, but about how to communicate with each other. So let me just give you a little bit. I'm a red dominant choleric. For the most part, I do have some tender sides that are a different temperament at home and various things, but most people see me as the guy who's in control, take the lead, whatever. And when I'm maybe there, you operate in different social settings in different ways, but when I'm home, I'm still seen as that sometimes, even though I'm very tender, very gentle. And that's one of the things our counselor said is like, you're a unique mix. And so Julie, on the other hand, she's a processor. She's melancholic / phlegmatic, little bit of both, depending on the situation. She processes, she looks inward, feels guilty, self-blames, all of those things. And I'm like done and moving on. So knowing that, one of the things that we've learned about it is that Julie will typically, if I have an issue, boom, it's there, and she ain't had time to process it. Well, if she has an issue, she holds on to it, processes it forever, and then I never knew it existed. That's a recipe for just frustration.
Yes.
We're 23 years into this thing now, and I think we're growing closer and closer even through this conversation. So we just decided, you know what, to help her and to help me. One is, if I have a frustration or something, rather than just bringing it out in the moment and her feeling bombarded, which is what she feels, it's not what I'm doing, it's what she feels, and that matters. Let's set a time where we can talk about it and not have defense mechanisms up. On the flip side, if she feels offended or frustrated or hurt, needs to say something, and she's processing, she only has so long to process before she has to say it.
Yeah.
So there's those touch points throughout the week, and rarely is it a full week, because we usually try to do it on Wednesdays. It depends on basketball practice. Well, you think about it. Wednesdays, we have certain set agendas for Thursday, Friday, then the weekend. It's a little less stressful until Sunday. So rarely does something happen Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because we're kind of in a cool family rhythm and all those things. It's when the stress comes out, Mondays, Tuesdays. And so rarely does she hold on anything more than 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, that used to have been 3 weeks. And then I'd find out I've been doing that for 3 weeks. I've been looking at my phone now when you're talking for 3 weeks. I didn't know that.
That would have been nice to know.
Yeah, that would have been nice because I would have put my phone down and I want you to call me on those things. So we put some rules in place that says, okay, here's the dilemma. We're going to go. We're going to have fun. It's not date night. Date nights are different, but these are like intentional conversations.
So no, wait, do you do this like once a week or maybe at times twice a week?
So we do this once a week, hopefully on Wednesdays.
Okay.
But there's times where we had to say, hey, we got to grab a quick breakfast or a quick lunch while we're out doing whatever, just because. Most of the time, it's pretty positive. Man, I'm glad we're having this conversation. There was a season recently where I was sick, she was sick, we were traveling. We had one where we're like, let's just hit the pause button on this conversation and pick it up later. You're not feeling well. It's just been chaotic. And so that's why we do it once a week, so there's not like 3 weeks to pass and you're like, but that was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, most of the time, this is like, wow, I didn't know this. Let's move forward. Or here's what it does. It allows you to be more cognizant throughout the week of how you interact with each other. So you come, you're like, it's been a good week. And you're like, yeah, because I've been working hard, you know.
Yeah.
So I've been trying not to pick up my phone, or I've been trying not
aware.
to awareness. So that's really the idea is, so we're trying to build emotional connection. We talk a lot about physical intimacy. We'll talk about that in our church this week between a husband and wife. But the reality is emotional connection is a huge component of any kind of intimacy and any kind of health in relationships. Because what we often do as men, especially, we bypass the emotion and we want the physical. And she's like, I could take or leave the physical. I'm starving for the emotional connection. But here's the dilemma. We'll say you should be sexually active. You should be coming together as a husband and wife regularly. You know, what's regularly? We'll define some of those things this week. But we don't say you should be emotionally connecting regularly.
Yeah.
And so she's like, but how do I do that? And so those are things that we've been working on. And so here's the rules going into it. We answer these questions. We don't have to get to all 7 every time. There's some that you'll see that like, okay, we talked about that last time. We got a couple months of things that we can do. We don't have to worry about that. We'll revisit it in a month. But usually about 5 of these we ask every time. The dilemma is you can't be defensive. You can't rationalize why you did it. You can't, if it's a negative thing, you can't say, yeah, but. You just got to take it. You just got to take it on the chin and go, all right. Because here's what happens. When I take time to process, I'm probably less harsh when I say things. When she's already processed, but she's at a good point to where she's not held on to it for so long that she's not frustrated. Yeah. She knows that day's coming. She's processed. She's figured out how she's going to say it. Same with me. And it's like, it comes off more gentle. It comes off, I want to connect with you.
So wise.
I don't want to beat you up. This is not a win a battle conversation. Remember what I said Sunday is if you think you won the argument, you lost.
Yep.
Because the marriage lost. And so this is an idea to say, hey, let's raise awareness. And so there have been times it's like, you know what, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing negative. There's nothing positive. It's just kind of one of those weeks. Sometimes there's great positive things. Sometimes there's negative. And you're like, okay, let's stop. We're on number 3. I can only take so much. So those are things that we do. And that's occasional, but usually that's only if we've missed a week or 2. And traveling and or sickness is the only thing that's ever caused that. So this idea comes out of Ephesians 4:29. We hear it. Paul's been talking about marriage in Ephesians. We hear all this conversation about, Ephesians 4 and Ephesians 5. We see how the church relates to each other, how marriages relate to each other, how Christ relates to the church. Yep. Gives a symbolic idea of the conversation of how Christ and the church, symbolic of husband and wife. And so Ephesians 4:29 says this: do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Now listen, let's apply this to marriage. Generally speaking, I don't want to over talk this or over generalize it, but 80%, maybe 90% of women, maybe not that high, are emotional people. They feel. Men are physical. Okay, here's the problem. At the core of your sexual intimacy is your emotional intimacy and your connection. This is why some women just feel like all he wants is sex, because they've never connected. This is why men feel like, well, she's just not connecting with me because she's just kind of going through the motions. Okay, here's the thing. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. Okay, we know, let's not beat each other up. The problem is if you don't have conversations regularly, it comes off as unwholesome. So we're making this wholesome talk. But only what is helpful for what? Building others up according to what? Their needs. So here's the thing. What I know is if I build my wife up according to her emotional needs and we connect, she's going to build me up in my physical needs. It all started with communication. Wow. And so it may benefit, those who listen. So we are trying to work hard, because here's the thing. I had a 15-year-old, almost 16 years old, 11-year-old. We know in about 6 to 8 years, it's going to be us. How emotionally connected are we? Yeah. And so we're having to now, as the teenage years come, say, boys, you're staying at home. Boys, you're, that kind of thing. And so through the last 3 years with COVID and various conversations, we kind of got out of the habit of some of those things. And so this is helping us. So here we go. Let's jump in with 7 questions that we ask each other, and I'll tell you why some of these are applicable. The first one is this: what is bringing you the most joy right now? Now, this one's important because for us, because Julie tends to see what's bothering her, not what's bringing her joy. She has those things that bring her joy, but she focuses sometimes on the things that have let her down. Sure. So this causes us to say, you know what? I really enjoyed traveling. I've really enjoyed, spending, depending on the time of the year, I've really enjoyed sitting by the pool and hanging out with the kids. I've really enjoyed this is bringing me joy. Okay, so what that does is goes, hey, Carl, give her more time to do that. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's, bringing her joy is our nieces right now. They're 4 and 2, and they're beautiful young girls. They're a handful. They love to talk. They're all over the map. But watching them engage with our kids. So what in my mind, I'm going, get her around those nieces, right? Yeah. It's just common sense. Yeah. For me, what is bringing me the most joy? I can say, I've enjoyed when we went on this trip. I enjoy when we, now here's the thing. Every week, you're not going to have something that's like, Thursday, I was so joyful because, but you might. And then it's like, hey, that ought to trigger your spouse. Yeah, capitalize on that. So that's the first one. That one's simple. Everybody can answer that. Oh, that's good. That's easy. Here's the second one. Is there anything you need or want from me or more of from me? So this is interesting. She would say, I need you to, let's just talk every day, but when the kids go to bed. Mm-hmm. Or I need you to just, when we're sitting on the couch, not be on your phone as much.
Did she call you before this? Did Krista call you and say, "Can you just kind of"?
Is this what? No, she didn't say anything. But I think I would say, I need more affection. I need more, affirmation. I need you to, notice me more. Because listen, that's my biggest needs, physical need when it comes to marriage. I grew up as an only child. Not anything that I would, point the finger and blame my parents for, but I was a lonely child. I spent a lot of time. My parents worked all the time, especially my dad. And I've realized, I have a desire and a need for affection out of probably some brokenness. And so the person that I love the most, my kids are so affectionate, especially my youngest. But Julie's not naturally affectionate. So I've been able to say, here's when you did good. Yeah. Here's what I need more of. I need you to, think about this when it comes to the kids, or, because I feel like, one of the things I do is I take the kids almost everywhere, because I do that to honor her, to let her rest, because she's at home with the kids. She's, homeschooling them, although they're in an age now where it's not as big a deal. I run them everywhere. I might say, hey, I got a lot going on this week. I need you to take the kids. I need you to, that kind of thing. So that's just an easy one. All right. Here's number 3. This one's pretty easy. until it's not easy. What or when have you felt the most love or closest to me this week? Now, here's the problem. You start asking that question, and then if they're like, I don't know.
It's a trigger something.
You got some things to work on.
Yeah.
And so this probably 3 out of 4 times, she'll say, when you did this. Or I'll say, when you did this. But the weeks that we don't, you'll also find that the next question has more weight.
Yeah.
So you're going to find
to
either
this
question 3 or question 4.
Yeah.
So let's take this for an example. I think the next question, I'll talk about 4 and then we'll tie it together. 4, what have I done that has pushed you away this week? That's number 4. Everybody's ready for that one.
I'm familiar with that
The
question.
problem is y'all started with that one, right? So
I think it was number 2, but yeah, it was close up on the
yeah.
list.
So we've built rapport. We've talked about positive things. Here's your opportunity that you've been waiting on.
Yeah.
Because what we want to do is fix the problem, right?
Yep.
And so if we focus, though, here's the problem. We focus on what is bringing you joy. What can I do? What do you need more from? I'm giving more of myself to you, which is sacrificial love. Mm-hmm. When have you felt most loved or closest to me this week? Now it's like, okay, we got. You go through all 3 of those things, and they're like, nothing. You better get ready for number 4.
Yeah.
The goal
It's
is for the top 3 to have more conversation long term than number 4. But you're gonna know by the time you get number 4, this is gonna be tough.
1 through 3 is like the cushion.
It's
like
the
some
padding. Yeah, it's like you put the helmet on, you put the boxing gloves on, and then you take your punch, right? And I say that, you say it lovingly, but here's the problem. Here's the dilemma that you'll face. I'm only speaking from Julie, and I've talked to a couple other couples who've tried this, but when 1, 2, and 3 are loaded with stuff, there is no 4. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I can't think of anything. When 1, 2, and 3 are like, I was thinking about that. It's just been kind of a mundane week. Uh-oh. 4's coming.
It's coming.
Now, here's the problem. And most of the time, you both know it.
Yeah.
You both know it by the time you get to number 4. And because both of you are frustrated about something.
Sure.
And
it's
like I
about to
said,
come to
occasionally.
light.
Yeah. So here's the dilemma. The cool part about number 4. Number 1, I need to know when I'm doing good. Okay. So here's the thing with you and Krista. Let's talk about this. If she had said, when have you felt the most love for me this week? And y'all had that question before you had the question of what have I done that's pushed you away? I don't know, on the spot, how might that have changed the hour and a half conversation?
Yeah, it probably would have just given me some awareness of what I need to give more attention to. It would have kind of softened that blow just a little bit. I'm not saying she came at me like guns blazing. It was a very.
But you're eating dinner. You're just eating your little rice and beans, and you're
rice and chicken. I was just having dinner, and had a great day. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well,
you ruined it.
Intermission, so we can get Hadley to bed, and then we can continue this conversation later.
No, that's good. Well, so imagine if it had been, when have you felt most love or closest to me this week? And she would say, it really made, when we sat on the couch last week or Tuesday night, and we talked, and you said this, it made me feel close to you. Then she had said, well, then Thursday, we're sitting on the couch, and you asked me a question, and you picked up your phone, and I felt dismissed. You'd have been like, I'm going to work harder on what I did on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And you moved on.
It'll take care of Thursday.
It will. You would have moved on.
Yep.
You see the difference? Versus like, why are you coming at me?
Yeah, now we just set a picnic right here, and we'll stay at this question for an hour.
Right. And so you've set, this is.
I see that.
What tends to happen. So I had people emailing and texting and Facebooking Julie and Instagram and saying, hey, can you send me those 7 questions?
Maybe we should post these on social media.
Yes, with a link to this podcast.
Yes.
Because here's the thing. Most people want to jump to number 4. I want to tell you what you did wrong. That doesn't build each other up. Yeah. Now, if I've set you up
according to their needs, to my needs, yeah.
That's exactly right.
That gives me validation.
Notice I've spent 3 questions learning about what builds you up. Mm-hmm. Now number 4 becomes a build-up question too versus a tear-down question.
I love the intentionality behind that.
Yeah. So, all right, number 5, we got to roll through this. What did you do this week that you're proud of? Now we've taken the attention off of us, and we can celebrate one another.
Well, I wasn't very proud of anything after that.
Yes. Well, I thought I was proud, but then you said that. So,
yeah,
So, like, here's an example. Julie's a self-critic, and I live in a glass house. Let's just put it that way. So, you know me, and we'll talk about this in our next episode when it comes to criticism. I don't self-promote. I mean, people may perceive because I'm on a platform that there's self-promotion. That's just part of the platform. when you look around our country, when you look around our world, I'm very much not a self-promoter. Everything that we do is very much geared at trying to bring people closer to Jesus. I try to take my family out of the spotlight. Mm-hmm. I had to learn when I was in my 20s the hard way on that. When influence began to grow and what it was doing to my dark side, and then I went through Hurricane Katrina and lost a lot of not necessarily a lot of influence, but it just blew the whole, coast where I lived up, and it just rocked me at my calling. And so from that came this understanding that this is not about me. Yeah. More than, I'm glad it happened in a weird way, not the tragedy that happened, but to me, the self-reflection and the counseling that came from that. I'm glad it happened because when COVID came, I was ready. I was much more prepared because of that season. I wasn't tied up in the fact that we're building a $5.8 million building and nobody's going to be in it when I speak because it wasn't about me. That would have wrecked me had I not grown through that series. So I say all that to say, when we talk about what did you do this week that you're proud of, when I was a kid, I was celebrated for what I did. He's great at this. He's a great baseball player. He does sports. He's got,
that conditioned you.
Yeah. So my default setting when I was in my 20s was to seek out validation. I've matured and grown past that. I could care less about it now. In fact, I almost pendulum swing the other way. And when criticism comes, it gives me another level. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, fine, let's go. But here's an opportunity for me to look my wife in the eye and let her know what I'm proud that I've accomplished, as well as how she can validate me in a healthy way. But if I'm just walking around going, how'd I do? What'd you do? Did you see that? She's like, good Lord, stop.
Yeah.
Right? But if I'm like, I was really proud of myself because when this happened this week, I handled it this way. Yeah. She can say, you know what? That's incredible because I remember in your 20s you wouldn't have done that. And I've seen God change you from, you see how that conversation now navigates to building each other up. For her, on the other hand, she is a self-critic. She never feels like she's living up. This comes from other things that stem from maybe things that she experienced in life, which I won't go into. But she's a melancholic and a phlegmatic, which looks inward and says, I'm not good enough. I'm a self-critic. I might have done 9 things great, but I should have done 10 out of 10, not 9 out of 10. Sure. That's just her default setting. So this requires her to come and go, I was really proud of myself how I handled this situation. I was really proud of myself the other day when I, told the kids this. Yeah. Now she's having to come to the table and celebrate herself because she won't. She won't celebrate herself. That's why she's so loved in a weird way, is because she's so unassuming. People love her. They want to be around her because I'm not a self-promoter. When you consider all that I do, it's very much hands-on. She's definitely not a self-promoter. We don't post our vacations. We don't post our, our business stuff. We don't post all the things. We post things that drive kingdom principles. So we get to celebrate one another. And I get to now go, okay, I'm going to look for that in her, and I'm going to celebrate that in her now. And so now we've moved past, again, what I do to make you mad, to, hey, how can I build you up? Okay. And then number 6 and 7, these are easy. These are the ones that we don't always get to, but these are ones that are more like monthly that circle back. So number 6 is this: what are some fun things you would like to do in the next few months? So this is one, she loves to do projects together. Like when she'll tell me
house projects.
Oh yeah. Like, hey, I loved it when you hung this thing on the wall. We did this together.
Okay, so you said I'm about to say, you said we love it. We love to do house projects, but is it we or is it?
So she loves it. Okay. So for example, she will enjoy here in a few weeks when the pollen passes.
Same.
She'll enjoy going out and getting the deck ready and putting all the things out and getting plants planted.
Gotcha.
And she'll get out there and do it. Used to, it was all me, but she started doing it with it. She loves it. She loves to do that kind of stuff together. And I'm like, God, let's just get this done. But when I know she loves that, I'm adding value to her. I'm building her up. Now it changes my perspective on, digging a hole.
It's time together.
Right. And so projects around the house. And I say, okay, what are some of those projects? So when I say, what are some fun things you'd like to do in the next few months? She's like, oh, I'd like to put more, wood in the attic so we can rearrange our storage. And I'm like, okay, that's not fun, but it's fun for her because she's getting her house in order. That's her safe place. When she says, what are some fun things you would like to do in the next few months? To me, I'm like, I'd like for us to get away from the kids for a few days and let's go to a hotel in Atlanta and hang out.
Yeah.
You see the difference? But and she goes, okay, let me mark that down. Now, it ain't gonna happen this week, but it can happen in the next couple months.
Yeah.
And so we had about 4 weeks ago, there were 3 projects she wanted to work on. And there's only one that we haven't completed. And part of that was sickness and various things. And so it also gives me do I love her enough to make these things a priority, and vice versa?
Yeah.
So, and then number 7 is this. We don't always get to this one. Usually you can find, this is an extra layer that goes outside of your marriage, outside of your home usually, because usually by now you've already talked about everything inside your home. Number 7 is just like, is there anything else stressing you out right now? So for us, this gives me an opportunity not to bring ministry home every day and go, oh my gosh, this drives me crazy. This person, Julie, let me tell you what was said about me. Let me do it. I don't have to bring that every day. But I've processed it, and I can say, this week's been tough. Some people have taken pod shots, or I had a tough conversation, or I just feel like I'm behind, or that's not all the time, but it gives me that opportunity. I can say what's stressing you out right now. If you're rocking and rolling with the first 6, less often do you need to talk about number 7.
How difficult is it for you to not bring ministry home every day?
Well, as you know, Julie's heavily involved here at least once a week. And so she's here all day on Tuesdays. She knows what's happening. She has a pretty good pulse of what happens in the office, which is good. She also has a pretty good pulse of what's happening on Sundays. And so the 2 biggest days, the most, I wouldn't say the most important days, but the 2 most spotlit days of my life, or of my week, I should say, the ones that I'm in the grind, I'm with people are pulling on me in various ways, but I have to deliver, so to speak. Yeah. She's pretty present in that, so she knows. What tends to happen is the other way around. When we leave here on Tuesdays, I'm done. My mom, she's like, okay, I had this meeting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about this now? Because I'm fried. And so we've learned to table those things. She goes, I only have 2 things I have to talk to you about today. We can process the others later. And so, those are things. She handles most of the conflict in our staff, as you know. I try to stay out of that for various reasons. But there's...
Was that a shot at me? As I know, she handles most of the conflict.
No.
Because I'm involved in all the conflict.
But you know that, when people see me coming, it just doesn't matter. They just oh, crap. It doesn't...
I've thought that before.
People, when I get in meetings, people know I'm pretty gentle most of the time. But... unless it's just a real issue that needs addressing immediately, I'm very gentle with people, but it doesn't matter. They're still panicked. And so they don't freak out. So they're like, it's Julie. And I'm like, so that she handles that, which that stuff stresses me out, because if I have a conversation with a staff or a leader or am involved in a counseling situation that's heavy, that's where I carry stuff home. Yeah. Because I'm like, what's going to happen? How's it going to go? What are they thinking? Sure. You see what I'm saying? Because going back to my childhood, one of the things I've said to you, again, we'll talk about this in the next episode, I feel like I lived for the approval of others because of it had nothing to do with me. It was my upbringing. That now I got to look at my temperament and realize, okay, my temperament can be fed by that as well. And so when I'm in that conflict, I don't shy from conflict. I'm fine with it. We're going to knock it out and get it done. The problem is sometimes it's not the healthiest when it ends for both parties.
Yep.
Because if I'm the leader, if I'm in a conflict with somebody that's a peer or somebody I'm all for that. But when I'm the leader, I don't want to hurt people. Yeah. And so, anyway, I just say all that to say I stay out of that as much as I can for the health of my mind. And there's so many people that when that happens, when things come at me, or when I'm involved in things that I wish I wasn't involved in, all of a sudden that's what stresses me out. Yeah. That's where I'm like, oh God, and my mind doesn't shut off. And people think you're invincible because you're on a stage. It's not true. I'm human, We moved a little further away from the church because my mind couldn't shut off when I was in the community all the time. Not because I don't love people, but when you're going out,
because you love people.
But because I love people,
exactly.
Yes. It's like I moved away from people and I love people.
Yeah.
But I love people and I love the people.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I moved away from them, so not just the people in our church, but I would go out and what was supposed to be a 20-minute trip would turn into an hour and a half. I would go sit down at the Mexican restaurant on a Friday night locally, and people come stand at my table, and my kids are like, Dad, you're always talking to other people. Yeah. It wasn't fair to my family. Now, people also know on Sundays when I'm here, I'm highly engaged in the lobby. Mm-hmm. I'm very accessible.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I had to put boundaries around the stressors in my life, and then if she knows that or I know that with her, I can run interference.
So wise.
And so that's it, man. I'll run on what is bringing you the most joy. Is there anything you need or want more of from me right now? When have you felt most loved or closest to me this week? Number 4, what have I done that has pushed you away this week? Number 5, what did you do this week that you're proud of? Number 6, what are some fun things that you'd like to do in the next few months? And number 7, is there anything stressing you out right now? And you know what? Write them down. make notes.
Yep.
And
then we'll post them this week on social media, so you can keep an eye out for that.
Yep, that'll be good. So we'll post these along with the podcast link, and we'll go from there. So, hey, thanks for joining us today on the Good Life Podcast. Hopefully this whole series on conversation, communication, marriage, all that, along with this series we're in called Love, Sex, and Dating at Our Church, they kind of go together. So I'd encourage you to go listen to that. Have been helpful. Join us the next 2 episodes. We're going to talk about handling criticism, and then we'll talk about conflict coming off the heels of that. So, hey, God bless you. Subscribe on all platforms. Share this if it's been helpful. Give us a review, and just let your friends and family who are going through difficult seasons, or maybe you know a marriage that needs to have these conversations, let them know, and we'll see you guys next time.